right, so shalom, family. We are back, better than ever. It's been a while. This is Shabbat Conversations with Shad and
Chris.
All right. So for today's topic, we're going to be talking about misconceptions of marriage or misconceptions about marriage. All right. So I thought this was going to be a really good topic because I think a lot of people have an idea of what marriage is, and it might be a little bit skewed based on, movies and Hollywood and just kind of the fairy tale stories that are told about marriage. But we're going to kind of give the real, kind of the raw.
From our perspective.
From our perspective, yeah. Not bashing or making it seem like it's awful. No, we're just kind of being real about how marriage works from our perspective, once again, from our perspective, and just how to prepare, for a good marriage, because when you have a preconceived notion of what it is and then you get into it and then it's different, you may feel that it's terrible or that it's not going well or that I need to get out of it. But that don't have to always be the case, because marriage is work, like we mentioned before in other podcasts, that is work, and that love is action. It's not feeling based, but it's more action based, right? So I just thought this was a good topic that we could talk about, and that people that may not be married, or if you're in a marriage or freshly married, it could be something you can glean from. Alrighty, so the first question that I have is, before we got married, what did you think marriage would be like? What did you think it would be like before we got married?
I got an answer for it.
Yeah, just give a perspective, even growing up, or what you saw from your parents, and even just even before marriage,
I felt I had a good view of marriage. I had seen my parents be married, and I would say they have a very successful marriage. So I had a positive view of marriage. I think growing up, I always kind of valued their relationship, and I always wanted to be in a marriage like theirs, which was, I guess, kind of different. I guess I didn't realize the amount of people who had not seen positive marriages until I got to college and realized all my friends had divorced parents.
Right.
So I would say I had a positive view of marriage, one that didn't make me shy away from marriage. My parents definitely are in a partnership. I kind of always got that vibe that they did everything as partners.
Okay.
So I definitely wanted a partnership and expected a partnership when I was going into a marriage. Not that one dominated the other.
You expected it to be 50-50.
Yeah, in certain aspects.
Explain that. What aspects did you think it would be 50-50 or so to speak?
It was roles. There's defined roles. It's not just one person doing the bulk of the work. There was defined roles as far as if I expect you to do X, Y, Z, then I'll do this to balance each other out. It's not gonna be this one parent is really running everything. As far as one parent is doing everything, the other one is just in the background. Yeah.
So when you talk about that, that's from the aspect of housework or
just in every life. Just from my experience, my mama didn't work, so yeah.
Not just the house, but
my mom was a stay-at-home mom, so it was the expectation this is from my point of view. Obviously, I don't know what conversation they had. The expectation was if you stay home and render our children, then you don't have to work. I'll just take care of everything financially. I don't expect. So there was a balance, and not to say he wasn't. My daddy was very present, but not to say when I come home, I don't expect to do nothing because I worked all day. It was never that. It just was, we gonna balance each other out. And so I got from that standpoint. But then from a discipline standpoint too, it was there 50-50. We knew kind of my mama was to discipline in this area and my daddy did it in this area. They balanced each other out very well growing up. So it was, I never thought about one parent dominating growing up. It was I knew I could expect my dad to do X, Y, Z, and I could expect my mama to do this. It was very balanced. So I just expected that from, I guess parenting is a part of marriage, but that's the part of marriage that I saw was my parents' parent.
Right.
I never saw them as just single entities because I came along as child 5, so they had been parenting for a long time.
Of course.
But yeah, I just always expected it to be a partnership more so than like a. Maybe this is like a new age way of thinking, but people are just like, we married, but we still like gonna do our own thing. That was never the way I viewed marriage. It just always was like two people coming together to
and
help
do
each
their
other.
defined roles. So like, so since your dad was out there working and grinding, and your mom was staying at home taking care of the kids, but like even in that, you thought that there was like a balance in that.
Yeah,
like,
it was a balance
because he's taking care of stuff on the outside. You're like, okay, I want to take care of stuff as far as finances for the house and and all that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Not to say I wanted that. I don't.
That's what I'm saying, because there's something
I just
in
saw
you
the
that
balance
you wanted
in it.
different as far as like household stuff. So what shifted your mindset to be like, okay, we're gonna be 50-50 as far as like doing house chores?
I feel like, and not to say this ain't my.
Oriented.
Yeah, I definitely had, and I can't say my mama didn't want to be career oriented.
Right.
That could have been something that she wanted to do too, but I don't know. They just kind of instilled into us like education, working. I've always seen for myself the ability to make my own money, and that's always been a goal. And obviously now we make money together, so I'm not making my own money, but I just always was like, I can do stuff for myself.
Yeah.
So that has always just been in my head. Like I need to be able to. I get satisfaction out of working and making money, and so I feel like I can balance both. And like be a good wife and make money and render children and make money. So I just always have goals for myself that I feel like if I stayed at home I wouldn't be able to accomplish at this point in my life.
That makes sense.
So but even as a kid I knew I didn't want to be a stay-at-home mom. Like not anything. I valued how my mama was, and I think she did a great job with us. But even growing up, I was like, I don't want to be like this.
So even growing up, like your perfect picture of a marriage was like a 50-50 partnership, just all around, like not just with taking care of the kids, but like also like
this was a balance.
The house, like we have even certain house chores or like being in control of the budget and like just kind of wanted all of that to be balanced.
Oh shoot, I'm checking up this phone. Yeah, I just need to be balanced. I don't know. I know some certain things I can't even really explain. It just was they were like yin and yang. It just worked well, and I saw it that way. And I was like, but I can't even say that I haven't seen many unsuccessful marriages up front. Like in my face, where I can say that was unsuccessful. This is why it didn't work. Like I haven't really seen the opposite of that, where it was not 50-50.
Right.
And why it didn't work, but there was not a weak link, I guess. That was the biggest thing to me. Like I want to be in a marriage that I don't feel like one person is dragging the other along. Like it's very much we need each other to make this household run. And I knew I needed to be in a situation where I didn't feel like I was the person dragging you along, and you didn't feel like you was dragging me along. Like I need to. If your presence is not in the house, it needs to be felt one way or the other. Like if I'm not there, you should feel, dang, I didn't realize that Chris did XYZ, or dang, I didn't realize I did. Like your presence is felt when you're not there because you are an essential part of the household.
Right.
So that's what I wanted it to be like.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense, and. So like, so you pretty much you already kind of went into it knowing that okay, it's not about like lovey-dovey ooey-gooey, but like
no,
it's about like
building
with someone and understanding that we both have defined roles and we should work with each other.
I didn't maybe watch enough love movies growing up, but that never crossed my mind.
And like I said, you actually had a 2-parent household, so like you just saw it and that's your picture.
Yeah.
So, and I think for me, like, I think that's why, like, mine's is kind of weird, because, like, for me, obviously, having both my parents for, like, the first, 12, 13 years of my life, like, I pictured myself in that situation, like, once I got old old enough to get married and stuff, I figured...
30, you said 30.
I figured, I didn't think I would get married young, but, like, I figured that it would be like my parents. Like I wanted marriage to be like how I grew up with my parents. Like for the first 12 years of my life, that's what I wanted my marriage to be like. Because I felt like, both my parents are very lovey-dovey, very emotional people. They show a lot of affection. They seemed to love each other a lot early on growing up. So like that was the picture that I saw. I wanted like a very lovey-dovey, very affectionate household. As far as like roles though, like growing up, I didn't really pay it. It might be different for men because I never really like paid attention to like define roles like that. Like how you paid attention to what your mama did and what your daddy did. Like I never paid attention to okay, who's doing stuff around the house. Like especially when it comes to like the house stuff. Like I never really paid attention like that. So I can't even really say like. Now I'm quite sure for sure. Like my mom actually did probably most of the work stuff, but like I never really paid attention to that. I just paid attention to like how they treated each other, you know. And so I would glean from the good things that they did and the things that I thought were flaws. Like, okay, I don't want it to be like that. So I always looked at it like, I want marriage to be lovey-dovey, and so I kind of went into it with like feeling based, like I kind of
fairy tale type.
Like kind of fairy tale, because I grew up, I was exposed to a lot as far as TV and music, so like I did kind of have a picture of like a fairy tale, like it has to be like bubbly and fireworks bursting, right? And that's what marriage is going to be like all the time. Like it's just fireworks and it's passion and it's just so I kind of figured it would kind of be like that, because that's what I saw from my parents. Like I didn't really see a lot of fights. Like they're not necessarily fighting in front of us. Like they would obviously fight in front of us sometimes, like get into arguments and stuff like that here and there, but like for the most part I didn't see that side of them until the divorce. So like early on, like I'm just seeing all of the affection. So I'm thinking, this is how it is. We got two really affectionate people with each other. So I was like, okay, that's how it should be. So I'm thinking it's like really feeling and touchy, lovey. So that's what I'm thinking it's supposed to be. So that's kind of what I went into, like not going to marriage, but like growing up. That's kind of what I figured it would be like. So that was, I guess, those some of my thoughts, I guess, are kind of what I thought it would be before marriage, or at least before we came to understanding that we were Israelites and following the Torah. So, but I think once so we could transition to this. So like now coming to the truth, or coming to the way, or coming to the knowledge of Torah. Did your perception change at all when we found out about Torah and we would start transitioning to be Torah observant? At all? Like, what you think?
Mine didn't necessarily change because I think my fear was that yours was going to change as far as like what you felt. Like, yeah, what you felt like. I say. No, I never thought you was on that, but I just thought that you was going to, I guess, like push a more quote unquote traditional role woman, like, and try to push me to, not necessarily push, but I thought you was going to be on the, well, you can stay home. Why don't you just stay home and like raise the kids and homeschool and just try to make sure like they don't get exposed to too much and stuff, which is not bad. Obviously, that was some of the reason I feel like my
being overly protective
parents, like trying to shield it from everything and just take on a more like traditional, I guess, biblical type. What people feel like is a biblical moment, but Psalms 31. Proverbs 31 is clearly not that, but. So that was like my biggest fear. I didn't see a change in like what I expected coming to the truth. It was just like
just pretty much the same.
Yeah, it's like it's supposed to be a partnership. I'm supposed to be your help me. So that don't mean that I have to be at home or work from home or work in the house. So I never saw. I just was scared that was what you were gonna get on, like the whole. Well, why don't you just stay home and work and like not work? You don't have to work if you don't want to, and try to not push that. You never pushed anything, but I was scared that was what you was gonna be like. Wanted me to do that more so than working. But it's fine for people. It just wasn't what I wanted, or not what I wanted.
Yeah, I think for me, like I don't think much changed either. For me, like I think the only thing that kind of stuck out to me as far as like what I expected out of before we got married, like once we transitioned, was like, okay, now I have a bigger responsibility for our family to move in the right way. Because I felt like I was willing, before we kind of transitioned, I was willing to allow you to take lead on stuff. Like, if I'm not the strong spiritual one, so sure, you can, whatever you feel like is cool, we can deal with that. But I think once I transitioned to Torah, and once I realized that, okay, I'm the head, like, if things fall apart, it's my fault. Or if my family's not moving in the right way, shoot, it's gonna be on me. So like I start realizing like, oh dang, I need to make sure that I'm doing my part to lead our family in the right way. So like that's the one thing that did shift. Like, okay, it's not on my wife to lead the family. It's not on my wife to like, hey man, you can handle stuff. I mean, sure, yeah, we go. But like obviously, like we can consult and you can still lead in certain ways. Obviously, you're a leader too. We're both leaders in our own right. But me being, I guess, the head, it's just like, yeah, like I have to make sure that I'm leading the family in the right way. So like that's the one perspective that kind of shifted for me as far as like once we transitioned. But I think that was the only thing, because like I never thought to like, okay, since I'm the head, it's what I say, it's only what I say, and that's how it's gonna be.
I never thought it was gonna be there. That's just not your personality. So I never thought it was gonna be there. I just thought it was gonna be more so like, and I was repeating myself. I just thought it was gonna be more so like, I feel like some people when they get, and that's in a lot of, I guess, different religious sectors. I guess when they take on these more like spiritual / traditional like biblical views, then it is sometimes the next step. Like, well, if I'm gonna be the head and I want to make sure we raise a righteous family, then one of the ways for you to do that is take your kids out of school and like be able to teach them and not get them exposed to stuff. So I mean, I think a lot of women do want to do that. It was one for me.
Yeah, and with you saying that, like, I think there's another thing that shifted too. So when I came to the way, like, I felt like, we had to be. I think the zeal, like at first we had that zeal of, okay, you come to new knowledge, it's like you fired up. So like trying to be uber self-righteous and like I have to separate myself and be completely, just isolated. Like, don't watch this, can't do this, no this. And obviously you will want to, be as pure as possible. You want your mind to be as pure as possible. But
it's balance.
There's still balance. And as we grow in our faith, we have to then take what we know to other people that are not in our faith, right? Because we're supposed to be lights to the world, like the scriptures say. We can't hide it under a basket, but it needs to be upon a hill for people to see. So like we have to be willing to, as we grow and as we learn, not to hoard information, not to act like we're better than people, but that understanding that through our growth, we can allow people to be a part of our growth and they can glean from us. So it's good to be around people, just people in general, because it helps understand where you at. It helps to understand where your mind is at, to see how strong you are, and to see how influential you can be around people that's not like you. Right? Because if you're always just in your own circles, you don't really know how to handle a test, really. Mm-hmm. You don't understand how to handle stuff if you're just always around your own circles. Like, it's good to be around other people or be privy to other knowledge, just to kind of sharpen yourself. So I had to balance out on that part for sure. Right, so that was good. That was good on that topic. That was good. So the next topic we're going to talk about is we're going to describe our feelings right before the wedding. All right, so I guess I'll start. So right before the wedding, I think for men and women it's going to be different, because I think men aren't as stressed when it comes to preparing for wedding stuff. When it comes to getting things ready, like I don't think men have much anxiety and stress when it comes to
like the actual wedding,
like leading up to the wedding or prepping, like getting things ready, because usually we're not a part of that process, like getting venues and like trying to make sure the guest list, like we really, at least in my experience, I don't think we really have a lot to do with that process usually. So for me, my feelings right before the wedding, I was completely confident. I was very sure that what we were doing was the right thing. Even with all of the outside noise and with all of the troubles that we were going through leading up to the wedding, I still have full confidence that I'm with the right person, making the right decision, and we're gonna be all right. So, I mean, that's very simple for me. That was my feelings. Like I felt very comfortable, very confident, even with all the trials and tests we was going through and the ups and downs, even before, like that period of our engagement. Like I had no doubts. Now I will say, obviously, leading up, we had stressful moments because of situations and I don't know if we was talk about this, but like certain people trying to stop it, or just all of the accusations and character killing things and all that stuff was very stressful. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, but other than that, the outside noise didn't. Even though it was stressful dealing with that, because I'm not used to dealing with that, the outside noise didn't affect what I felt about going into the wedding. So, but what about you? Like, what was your feelings? Because I know a lot of times for women it's a lot different. Y'all deal with prepping and making sure everything's in order and just stress and maybe cold feet. I know men do with cold feet too. So I'm not saying we don't do. We definitely do. But like, what was your feelings?
I mean, I wasn't stressing nothing about the day itself. I mean, I didn't really do a bunch of prepping. We were engaged for 6 months.
It was quick.
And I probably threw like planned our wedding out in like a month, like the last month.
It was like what? You sure the month was like 2 months?
There definitely was not 2 months. It wasn't even 2 months worth of planning to do.
That's true.
So I probably planned this. I think we picked the day in like April.
Mm-hmm. Well, did we both pick the venue? I feel like I saw it.
I saw it. And our wedding was very small. It was like we invited like 30 people. It was in a park in Memphis. It was just very small. Decorations was very minimum. We had we probably spent no more than $2,000, if that much. Mm-hmm. We had help from his family with some of the expenses too. Yeah. And then I bought my dress off Amazon. So I feel like the planning itself was not stressful at all. It was just like, it really was, I ordered everything off Amazon. So it was not like I had to go look at venues and pick out flowers, like all stuff that I guess traditionally women freak out about, like finding a dress. Like I said, found my dress on Amazon. So that part was not stressful to me. Mm-hmm. The whole planning, that just was like, click up a button and
I guess it
did this match, did that match.
Like extensive.
No, it wasn't like cake testing or anything. Yeah, that stuff was not really stressful, true. And we had help. So, like buying stuff or whatever wasn't really stressful. I think leading up to it was kind of more so stressful, just with kind of the stuff we dealt with people not wanting us to get married or saying that we shouldn't get married. So I think the biggest stress for me was just, I never doubted that I was supposed to marry Shad. I always felt like he was my husband. My biggest thing was timing. Like, are we getting married at the right time? And I feel like one was the timing, because I just feel like I wanted to get married when I feel like everybody was on board with us getting married and understood like where we're coming from. So that was one thing that I thought maybe the time is not right. Like maybe we should wait for everybody to get on board. For us to get married. And then another part of the time, it was just, I was like, are we like financially in a place to get married? Because I was still in school, which that was nothing we could do about that. I still had like 3 years, well, really more than that. School left. And Shai had just graduated. And he had a job, but it wasn't like doing much. I mean, it was enough for us to get by, but I was like, maybe we should wait until you get like a more sound job, like using your degree or whatever. So it was just things that were like, maybe we should hold off on not getting married. And we weren't engaged for too long, but 6 months was a long time or whatever, especially we were saving ourselves. So I was like, I'm not trying to be engaged forever because nobody's trying to do that or whatever. And so I thought 6 months was a sufficient amount of time. To me, the biggest thing was just like, do we get married now when everybody not on board? So that was the biggest thing to me, because I just was like, I wanted everybody that I wanted to be there, I wanted them to be there. And it wasn't the case, but ultimately we sat down and we was like, I mean, the wedding is not the end all be all. Like I'd rather somebody be okay with our marriage eventually and just not be a part of the wedding, I guess, which was ultimately out of my control. I'd rather this is a day. Like the wedding is obviously a day. It's not the whole marriage. A wedding is different from marriage. So we just had something low key. I say I was not stressed about the day itself.
Right.
I was more so stressed leading up to the day, dealing with the situation, but it had nothing to do with the marriage itself. It just was the stuff surrounding the marriage. That was probably the hardest 6 months of my life.
Which I think that's a lot of stress when it comes to pre-marriage. A lot of times I don't think it's
The marriage itself.
the relationship itself. A lot of times it has a lot to do with things leading up to it, like as far as like maybe people in your ear, or the fact that you start thinking negative thoughts, like like I said, timing, or is this the right person?
Is this the right person? Yeah.
You start like the cold feet and the anxiety. So I think a lot of stuff is like intrinsic.
Yeah.
And then you start getting into arguments just off the mere fact that you're scared. Like a lot of times you just stuff just blow up out of nowhere for like no reason. It's like, what are we arguing about? Like when did this become an issue?
I feel like we didn't do a lot of that. We didn't do a lot of that.
No, we didn't do a lot of that. But I'm just saying, I think that happens
That does
a lot.
happen, yeah.
Just in general.
Stuff that
We
never
didn't
was an
really go through
issue,
that.
it kind of blow up and
Yeah,
be
we
an
didn't
issue.
really go
Like,
through that. But yeah, I think a lot of times when you start having anxiety and stress and cold feet, you start finding reasons why you should probably get out of it. And so you start having arguments for no reason. So like I said, we didn't have that, but that's something that
we didn't have it a lot. I guess like we didn't have it at all. But it
Right.
wasn't like our arguing and hiding during that 6 months.
Yeah, so if you want to talk about like what kind of, because I think at one point you, like you said, you was talking about how you thought it may not have been the right time, and would you call it kind of having cold feet at some point?
I never had cold feet. I was never, I guess, some people say they'd be 100% that they making the right choice. I don't think I was ever, should I say that? I don't think, personally, I was 100%. Not necessarily saying that, like, I got in, jumped in and not knowing.
Right.
I have talked to other married women about this, too. They have been married for way longer than us. And they said the same thing. Like, I just feel like you never know until you get into, like, I felt at peace about it. I felt at peace about the situation.
Right.
That's what ultimately made me go forward with it, even though everybody wasn't on board. Yeah, I felt at peace about the situation. I knew that, I felt that like God had ordained for us to be together, even in spite of the circumstances. So I just felt at peace about it. But if you would ask me 100% without making the right decision, I would say 99. Like, because in the back of my head, I'm just always like, what if I'm not? Like, that's just in the back of my head. But I felt at peace about the situation, so I didn't doubt. There was like not really doubt that I was marrying the right person.
Right.
But I just felt at peace about the situation. But I had experience, I guess, very close to me, experienced what it was like to marry the wrong person. And so that just always kind of lingered in the back of my head. Like, what if I think I'm in love, but this really not who God had for me. So that was just kind of always in the back of my head. I guess that was what the 1% was. But I felt at peace about the situation, like even going into it. And even saying that, I say I felt at peace about it, but on the day of our wedding, I definitely still felt at peace. I didn't take the peace away, but the day of our wedding was hard for me. Yeah. Not necessarily because anything you did. It just was hard for me because everybody that I like would have wanted to be there didn't show up.
Right.
So that was hard dealing with the day of our wedding. But we still had fun. But it wasn't the experience that I expected it to be. Nothing. Yeah. There's nothing that like we did or with each other. It just was not the experience that I had. I guess as a girl, you dream of your wedding being one way.
Of course.
And then when you don't get that experience, then it's a little bit of a disappointment, I guess. Yeah. But we had fun. I mean, it was a beautiful day. Everybody said it was a beautiful day. Everybody enjoyed it. So, and a wedding doesn't make a marriage.
It doesn't, So it's like I said. So taking the positives from it, it still was a beautiful day. And just to clarify for like some of the audience that may not know, like what we're talking about, like why folks didn't show up, like It was like it wasn't nothing that we did. It was simply, a transition, because obviously, I don't bash religions. Folks believe what they want to believe, do what they want to do. It's perfectly fine. Not everything is not for everybody. I get it. And so for us, we just made a transition to start following Torah. Like instead of believing a piece of the Bible or whatever. We just decide, I'm gonna believe the whole thing, the Torah, the Tanakh, and the New Testament. So people had issues with that, and that's kind of how things kind of went. So when we talk about this, it's like, well, what did Shah do, or what did Chris do? Like, well, but it's like it wasn't really nothing we did. It was just mere fact that doctrine, pretty much was a sword, and it separated pretty much. And I think that's pretty much the best way we can put it. To be honest, I mean, just religion. Sometimes can be divisive. Whatever religion is, whether it's Judaism, it could be any kind of religion. Sometimes religion can be divisive or can cause division. Where the good book is supposed to unify. The Torah is supposed to unify. The Mount Sinai experience was unification. Moshe and all the Israelites received the Torah, so it's supposed to be communal. But a lot of times, when you in certain boxes and certain we have certain doctrines, it can be very combative. So, yeah, that's pretty much what it was. All right. So, when talking about like pre-wedding stuff, like you got to understand that a lot of times growing up, depending on your situation, is going to shape what you think about marriage. Whether you have two parents in the house, one parent, whatever your situation is. It will shape what you think marriage should look like. But just understand, it's good to talk to people that are married. It's good to talk to people that are older and more experienced. That way they can kind of give you game on how it goes. Because, a lot of times our perception is not always the truth because we're not experienced in it. So it's good to ask questions. It's good to, glean from people that have been through it to kind of understand the emotions behind certain things. Like, okay, why am I feeling this way? Or right before the wedding, why am I having cold feet? Or why am I doubting? And just understanding that other people go through the same stuff. Like, it's not abnormal to have certain feelings. So you don't have to like get out of a marriage, or you don't have to feel like you're making the wrong decision because you're having certain feelings. Just understand that, these are human emotions that most people have before a wedding. So you just got to keep that in mind. So now we've talked about what we thought growing up about marriage and, our mindset right before going into the wedding. And so now we can kind of go in on, okay, now we're married. Okay, so bam, how does things go when we get married? Newlyweds, move in together, and we start our life. So I guess I'll start again. So I'll start again. So now, we're married, we move in together, and from my perspective, I speak from my perspective, so I ain't gonna say too much because from my perspective, things are going fine. So,
I didn't say nothing.
With your face saying everything,
No,
it's okay, it's all right. So, in my opinion, things are going right. Things are going okay. I'm enjoying marriage. I'm enjoying the process. I'm enjoying, finally being able to live with the love of my life, and and we're with each other officially, and we can grow and build as a family. So, like to me, when we initially got married, me personally,
why you keep saying that?
because I know you're finna go in.
No, I'm not.
So, sorry, I know you're finna go in. It's okay. So me personally, everything was fine in my eyes. Like things were okay. So I'll let you go ahead.
I didn't have no issue in the beginning. It was like once we first got married, and people ask me all the time. I was in my second year of pharmacy school, like right after we got married, like a month. I started my second year of pharmacy school a month after we got married. And so, like, of course, I'm going back on campus. And all my friends are asking me, "How's married life?" or whatever, and I would always say, "It's like living with your best friend." Like it was fun, and everything was good. Like we was broke, but we didn't know it. Like we didn't realize that we was broke because we just was having fun. Like it was nothing we didn't have. All our stuff was provided for. We would just go out and have fun
Still
and come home and playing board games and card games and watch movies. Like we just had fun. So it was good. Everything was good. I wouldn't say it started, and I don't even say it got hard, but I wouldn't say that.
Just talk about.
I guess the newness wore off until like later on.
So talk about what got you So talk about the things that you were upset with, or the things that you didn't like early on in marriage. Like, discuss those things.
The stuff that I feel like that we had discussed
With
as
the
far as like
50-50 stuff.
expectations of like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, household things. And we talked about this in other episodes.
Yeah, we did.
But as far as like expectation of like how I felt the household would be ran, because we were both at that time. You hadn't started back school, but
Right.
he was working full time. I was in school full time, and so it's just like I cannot be the only person doing stuff in the house. I can't be the only person cooking. I can't be the only person cleaning. And if that would have been, that's fine. If that would have been discussed as that was the expectation before,
Right.
and then I came in and realized I didn't, but that was not the conversation before. So I just feel like the conversation, the conversation that we had explicitly,
Right.
even before we started discussing dating, I had always explicitly said I don't want to be in a marriage, that I'm the only person doing stuff.
Right.
And so those expectations were not being met. And I felt like I didn't have the voice, not necessarily from what he had silenced my voice or anything. I just felt like as a woman, I was supposed to take care of all of that, because that's what I had seen done in my house. And so that just was really hard to deal with. And I didn't feel like at the time that I had anybody to go to talk about it. I was not close to anybody that I could talk about that too, and like what I was struggling with as far as like being in a new marriage. I didn't have anybody I could go to for advice when we first got married, and so I just kind of suffered in silence. So that is what made it hard. But I still wouldn't say it was horrible or anything. I wasn't like about to file for divorce or nothing, but it just was like, dang, this is a reality of what marriage is. But the thing is, even though like that's what I felt like, I was like, marriage is not supposed to be like this. Like, I know I'm not supposed to feel like this, because I didn't, obviously being married and dating is completely two different things. But I was like, this not the person. Like, I know that Shad is not like this. Like, he's selfless, so he not just gonna let me keep being like this.
Yeah, it's not on purpose. It's
so that was the biggest thing. I just don't know how to voice
built-in habits.
Yeah, I don't know how to voice that opinion.
Right.
Like, I'm drowning, like I'm overwhelmed, and I eventually did. It was like one day after Shabbat, we had got back from having service, and I just started crying in the car, and I was like, this is too much. Like, I'm overwhelmed. On top of, they say the second year of pharmacy school is the hardest year of pharmacy school. So on top of me like adjusting to being in pharmacy school and adjusting to being a wife at the same time, like in my hardest year of pharmacy school, and then throwing a whole new set of responsibilities. I'm just like, yeah, this is too much. Like, I'm overwhelmed, and I didn't have nobody to talk to about being overwhelmed, because I'm overwhelmed with you, but I don't feel like I need to vent to you about being overwhelmed with you. And I was just like, I don't have nobody to talk to. Like, at the time, I wasn't really close to any wives or anything.
At the time,
anybody that I could feel like could give me advice. So I just was suffering in silence, and was just hoping it was gonna get better. I was just like, I want to say, Sean, can you help me? But it's like, he just probably, and at that time, for sure, I'm just like, why is he not noticing that I'm drowning? That was the biggest thing. It's just like, he's supposed to notice I'm drowning.
Right.
But it's like, he never lived with me before, so he don't really know what it looked like for me to be overwhelmed per se. Like, and I'm a very, like, I just kind of shut down in silence when I'm overwhelmed. So I don't ask for help if I'm overwhelmed. I'm just kind of just retreat back into my shell if I'm overwhelmed. So it was like, I can't, and earlier on, especially now, I would think it would be different. But earlier on, it's like, I can't expect him to pick up on all my cues when we never lived together. Like, we are learning each other in a more intimate way than we did before. And also growing. Like, we had known each other as kids, the way we're not the same that we were when we were 18, 19. Like, we're grown adults at this point. So, it wasn't bad. Like, you act like I was just about to rip you apart. It was different. I think it was more difficult for me. That's what I never understood. Sean was like, I'm loving it. I'm like, life is good. Like, he had no complaint in the world. And I'm just like, I just feel like I'm overwhelmed. And I think part of it also was because what was going on. And I didn't have nobody to turn to. Like, most of the time people have you have somebody be like, dang, you can get on the phone and be like, dang, is this normal? Like, am I supposed to feel like this? Or is this a normal thing? Like, I didn't have nobody to bounce those thoughts off to. So then I'm just thinking, I'm the only person in the world that's suffering with this, because I couldn't go to nobody to bounce the ideas off of, as far as like is this normal? Is this what you went through when you first got married? Like,
Right.
all my friends were single at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had gone through marital counseling, but it wasn't to the point of like, I had not developed a relationship per se that I could just run to like our Morey's wife and ask like, is this normal? We weren't like to that level of me like texting, and I also was scared because I'm like, I don't want to text people to like tell my business and make people have people thinking like, yeah, what y'all over there doing? Like y'all over there act like, and so that was, you don't want me, I guess, judge, but I'm like, it was normal. Once I finally talked to people about it, it was like, okay, yeah, this is normal, yeah. So that I just had to juggle with that, and eventually I was like, yeah, I can't do this no more. So somebody got I still didn't at that point still didn't have nobody to talk about it with. I just eventually talked to you about it, about like how I felt overwhelmed.
Yeah, and that just shows how marriage is to sharpen you and to make you a better person. Because like I said, you heard the two different perspectives. Like I was fine, and she, was overwhelmed. So it's like you got to understand that growing up, we have certain habits. We learn tendencies based on our upbringing. So when you come into union with somebody, like those tendencies are still there. Mm-hmm. Those habits are still there. So like I'm not noticing that she's drowning because she expects me to pick up more weight. And we actually had a conversation of, okay, being 50-50, but in my mind of how I was raised and how, I'm not necessarily the most household picker-upper kind of person. Like I'm just thinking that I'm just doing regular stuff, but not realizing that, man, like pick up some slack. But I didn't notice that because these are my habits, these are my tendencies. Mm-hmm. And so it takes communication, it takes work, it takes wanting to change and wanting to grow. And so that's another misconception about marriage. Like the end goal to marriage, like we watched a video about it, like the end goal to marriage is not about feelings or not to, I'm supposed to fulfill her, she's supposed to fulfill me. Like it's about this bubbly thing, but it literally is for us to become more righteous people. Like marriage is supposed to help me become a better servant to her, a better man for her, a better father for our kids, a better, like it's supposed to be help me become a better man in general, and vice versa. Like, marriage is supposed to help her become a better servant to me and become a better wife, better mother, all those different things. So it's supposed to like marriage is supposed to like literally sharpen us and help us grow in areas where we didn't know we had weaknesses in. So like I didn't realize that I was being selfish and not picking up slack. Like I didn't realize that until she addressed it. It's like, oh snap, my bad. Like I didn't realize I was a part of you being overwhelmed, and that hurts. Like obviously when we had these conversations, like obviously it hurts. Like when your spouse come to you with an issue, and you feel like you ain't doing nothing. It's like, no, I ain't doing nothing. But you have to listen to their perspective, because their perspective, like you can't discount what they're feeling or discount what they're going through. Like their perspective is important, and it's probably true. So you have to listen to it and try to at least adjust. Now, if you adjust and you still get the same outcome, then you go from there. But, at least communicate. You have to communicate your differences, because your spouse not going to be able to read your mind. Like,
especially
because we had two different upbringings. So you can't read the other person's mind. Like, you have to communicate, because the other person may not realize that they're doing something wrong. So if you communicate it and they ignore you, then that may be a red flag you can look into. But like, at least communicate your issues and then try to work with each other to try to improve on whatever it is that you feel is lacking. So I dropped the ball. Like, so early on in the marriage, like I dropped the ball, like on helping out around the house. Like I'm not even realizing that I'm not helping out around the house. Like I'm thinking when I do little stuff here and there, like it's enough. But like she wanted more. It's like, okay, I'm doing enough. Like I'm doing a lot. She's like, no, you're not. So it's like, but so you have to kind of reflect and communicate and just be willing to grow. Like, you got to be willing, because marriage is not about the feeling. Like, obviously you want to be happy. That's a part of it, like being happy, all that kind of stuff, obviously. But like, you can't base marriage off of emotion, because you will have moments where it's like, okay, I need this to improve. Or, hey man, why you not improving in this? Or, hey man, like, What's going on with you right now? Hey man, you feel like you've been depressed for the last month. What's going on? It's like all that stuff is part of it. Like that's part of marriage. Like you're gonna have those lows, those highs and lows. You know, that's all part of it. So you have to be willing to work through that, communicate whatever you're dealing with, and being willing to change, adjust. You know, and you be able to make it if you're willing to change and adjust. Like keep that in mind. Change and adjust. You'll be fine, bro. It'll be fine because like you have to base it off of okay, how can I be better for her? And that's making you a better person. Like when you are reflecting and looking at what you can do better for somebody else, like that's making you a more holy person, a more righteous person, because that's what we're supposed to be, selfless. And a marriage is a picture of being selfless. It just really is, bro. It just, you know, sacrificing for your spouse, sacrificing for your children. Like I mean, it's about being selfless. You know. So anything else you gotta add to that?
Yeah, I just think marriage, the biggest part of marriage is being willing to grow. So, and you're gonna be constantly challenged to grow in a marriage. Like you said, to become a better version of yourself. Marriage is a mirror that reflects everything that you do. So stuff that you never noticed or things that you thought may be an issue, they're gonna get magnified in your marriage. I always knew that I was not a patient person, but it was not until I got married that I realized that how impatient I was and how that affected other people around me. And so it's just issues that you have. If you're not willing to grow and like you think you're perfect, do not get married because you gon' quickly realize how all the areas that you need to grow in.
How selfish we can be. How much we don't reflect. Like you'll start realizing how much you don't reflect, how selfish you really are. You'll start realizing how much you don't take accountability. You'll start realizing a lot of stuff once you start having those dialogues with your spouse about what this person ain't doing and what that person ain't doing, and you ain't doing this. Well, you ain't doing this. Well, you ain't doing this. It's like you start to realize, okay, there's no accountability. You start realizing, okay, dang, I'm a little selfish. You start realizing, dang, I'm thinking this about me. Start realizing, my feelings, it's about my feelings. What my feelings, You start realizing, like, dang, I'm weak in all those areas. So, like, a true marriage, you start to reflect and start realizing, okay, dang, we got to hold each other accountable. Dang, like, I ain't gonna lie, I was selfish. That was selfish. Dang, you know what? I wasn't listening. I am trying to do the blame game, place the blame game. So you start realizing that stuff. Like if you truly want the marriage to work and you want it to be successful, you'll start realizing those things. You start realizing how weak we are in a lot of areas, and you'll just be willing to grow in those areas. So you just gotta keep that in mind. So we're back with some more videos. We back now. I don't know how often we'll do it now, but we'll still come back and we'll do videos, and we're gonna get back on top of it because I know. This is some good information that people need to hear, and people may be going through things, and this may be beneficial for you. So we're gonna be back on it. So this has been Shabbat Conversations with Shad and with Chris. So we'll see y'all later. Shalom.